As mentioned, my name is Anders Ljungqvist. I'm a pharmacist by training, and I spent more than 35 years in drug development in big pharmaceutical companies, but also in biotech companies at different sizes. Today, I'm the CEO at Rovac, a Swedish biotech company, also with a subsidiary in Denmark. Rovac is a company working with immune therapy, and specifically, we are working with a treatment that should hopefully be able to avoid metastasis. So we are working with activities to avoid the spread of cancer in the body. We are listed on the stock exchange here in Sweden, and for this reason, this safe harbor statement. So, if we go into further about the project that we are working with, and it's a T-cell activation mechanism that we are working with. So we are using the T-cells in the body's defense system, the immune system, and to activate these T-cells to be able to attack cancer cells, we have to provide a target for the T-cells to recognize. And the target that we are working with is a protein that is called Rho-C. This protein is special because in all cancer cells that has a metastatic potential, you will see that the Rho-C is overexpressed, meaning you will find it in high concentrations. Not only in one disease, but the overexpression of Rho-C is common for all cancer cells that are metastasizing. So potentially, the treatment can be used in a variety of different indications. So, what are we working with for the next 3 years? What's the frame that we are working within? And that's a little bit what I want to describe for you over the next couple of minutes. So, as mentioned, we're working with an immune product, and we're working to avoid metastasis, to avoid the spread of the disease. Now, this is an approach that we find extremely relevant, because the fact is that 9 out of 10 cancer patients died of metastasis. They don't die of the primary tumor. So if we can avoid the spread of the cancer, we have a very good possibility to provide the patients with a better quality of life and a better prognosis. We have chosen to start working in prostate cancer, and the labeling for a potential product coming out of this is this one: adjuvant treatment of prostate cancer patient with biochemical failure following definitive local therapy. And I'll come back to what that actually covers, that labeling. Currently, we have completed our first clinical trial, a phase 1/2 trial also in prostate cancer patients. And we have initiated a clinical phase 2b trial. We have submitted the clinical trial application in the first of probably 8 countries. The first countries where it has been submitted is in Denmark. So the phase 2b clinical phase have already started. Then you can say, is there actually a patient population for this treatment? And yes, there is, as we see it. More than 1 million patients are diagnosed with localized prostate cancer. There are much more patients, far more patients that are diagnosed with prostate cancer. But localized prostate cancer, there is about 1 million patients per year diagnosed in Europe and in US. And the statistic tells us that about 40% of these patients will metastasize. So we can avoid this metastasis and keep the patients in the localized stage. There is a very big benefit for the patients. Finally, what we're also working with right now is trying to develop a protocol for a different indication, a late-stage indication, where we want to look at combination therapy with a different product. And most likely, this will be what is called a checkpoint inhibitor. So this is the frame that we are working with for the next 3 years. And here I just listed what will happen. Right now, we have completed everything that was completed during 2017-18, and that led up to the completion of the first clinical trial. Going forward, we have completed the scientific advice with EMA with a very positive outcome. This was done late last year, or mid last year it was completed. And we last week could publish information that we have also completed our pre-IND meeting with the FDA, and again with very positive results. The CTA submission, as I mentioned, has gone in the first country, and we will progress with the remaining countries over the summer. Then I've written we have a PIP, that's a pediatric investigation plans. You can say that it may not be that relevant when it's prostate cancer, but as we are maybe able to get into other indications, it's very important that we have a plan agreed with EMA. Otherwise, they could jeopardize the regulatory development of this project. Mid this year, oops, sorry about that. Mid this year, we will start the phase 2b trial. Expect to have the first patient in July. We also hope to perform some late-stage CMC development, that is to prepare for future commercialization. As mentioned, we would also like to start an explorative clinical trial in a different indication in combination therapy, and I hope to start that sometime in 2020. And completion of the main study in prostate cancer, we expect to have the results of the effect data in quarter 3 to quarter 4 2021. In parallel with this activity that is directly related to the regulatory and clinical development of the project, we have an ongoing collaboration with the University of Tübingen, experts in immune oncology, experts in immune measurement, and also with the Center for Cancer Immunotherapy in Copenhagen. And finally, but not least, we have a collaboration with Lund University on cancer stem cells, and we hope to be able to publish the first information from that collaboration within the next 2 months. So, the team, I shortly presented myself, and also we have Henrik, who is our CFO. Henrik has a long experience within biotech and worked with other areas before that. Lately, he was the CFO of Santaris Pharma. He was also the CEO for some time. This was successfully then sold to Roche in 2014, a very good deal. So Henrik had been involved in a number of international deals within biotech over the years. Also now we have engaged Anders Månsson, who's actually sitting here today also, and you can contact in the break. Responsibility for the business development and also for communication. Anders have indeed a long career at different big pharma companies, Ferring and Leo, but has also worked lately with a number of Swedish biotech companies and also as a consultant. Has made a number of very interesting deals, both out-licensing and in-licensing. So we're happy to have Anders with us in the team. As you can understand from the activities that are prioritized before, we basically focus in Rovac on clinical and regulatory development. And the team that is working specifically for us on this is the following 4 persons: Stephen Glaser, who is medical director, very long experience with different companies, with Novo in Denmark for more than 10 years. Have also worked with some American companies, have also worked with medical devices. In Sweden, he's worked with BioInvent, he's worked with Hansa Medical, Biopharma I think it's called now, and is also on the board of Immunicum. Very experienced person from a strategic point of view. Malene is our clinical coordinator, more than 20 years experience in clinical development. She worked as executive and also worked on the more operational level. In addition, Malene has worked with cancer vaccines before, which obviously is an advantage for us. Ann-Christine is responsible for the regulatory development. Also, Ann-Christine has a long-standing career, first at Leo Pharma, Then she moved to Belgium and was responsible for UCB regulatory affairs. She established Shionogi's European Regulatory Office. And in the biotech area, she was responsible for Genmab's regulatory development for a number of years. Finally, but not least, Andrew, who is our biostatistician. He has 20 years background from AstraZeneca, focusing on phase 1 and phase 2 oncology development. He's written a number of publications, and he's a invited speaker both at different conferences but also at different authorities, a very experienced person. So, as mentioned, we started with prostate cancer. That's where we want to continue. Now, if we look at the disease progression, when the disease is diagnosed, most of the patients will be treated with either prostatectomy or radiotherapy. And once that is done, they will get no treatment. You will see the PSA drops to below measurable level. In this stage, here they are under active surveillance monitoring, but they don't get any treatment. As mentioned before, a number of these patients will experience PSA recurrence, and at that time, you measure the PSA doubling time to determine how aggressive is the PSA. At one stage, then, the clinicians will decide to move the patient into second-line treatment, which is androgen deprivation therapy for most of the patient. Effective, some side effects, but the backside of it is that after about 18 to 24 months, the patients will be resistant to treatment. They will no longer have any effect. And at this time, then, they will move into metastatic phase, and finally, at this end, you have bone metastasis and spread to the rest of the body, and where the treatment options are not that many. Where we are looking, it's in this area here. It's the area where the patients today are under active surveillance, and in the clinical trial, we are enrolling the patient at this point when we know that they get a PSA increase. That's where they get into the clinical trial. This just to show that currently active surveillance and watchful waiting is the only thing that happens for this group of patients. And if we look at the pipeline, basically there are no other products in development specifically in this phase of disease development. So we completed the first phase 1/2 trial with good results, safety, no grade 3, 4 or toxicity, which is very good, and we have a very good tolerability, no withdrawals due to treatment or due to safety. The only thing seen is a grade 2 or less than grade 2 reaction, skin reactions at the injection site. This is expected because you always use an adjuvant when you use a vaccine, and this adjuvant creates this irritation in the skin. So that's an indication that it works. So the safety and tolerability for the patients is very good here. In this first study, we also measured the immunological response. And what we did was that we took one sample before treatment, 2 samples during treatment, and 1 sample 1 month after the treatment has been completed. 18 out of 21 patients have significant response. One patient we had to remove from this evaluation because the results were not inclusive. The patient had already immunological response before that he was treated. So 18 of the 21 patients have a significant response, but in addition, they also have what we call confirmed immune responders. And to be that, they had to have 2 of these 3 measurements had to be positive. And all of the 18 patients are regarded as confirmed immune responders. So it's a very strong, significant, and robust immune response. From these patients, we also have follow-up data after 3 months and after 6 months after completion of treatment. and all patients are still significant immune responders. So that means that we can conclude that we have a product-mediated immune response. So we have created this immune response with the product that we have administered to the patient. And the other thing we can say that with the dose, we know that it's biologically active. What we cannot say with this first small study is that if it's clinical relevant activity, because the study is far too small to judge that. That we will have to judge with the next clinical trial. Did I get that here? Yeah. So the next trial that we will go, it's a placebo-controlled study, and that is in men that the PSA have come back, PSA failure, biochemical failure, that have completed definitive local therapy, which means radiation therapy or prostatectomy. We have to enroll 150 patients, and we will compensate with some dropouts, so it will be 175 patients. It will be, as I mentioned, in 7 to 8 countries, and we will have 35 clinical sites for this study. So it's a relatively big study. From the first patient in until we can conclude on efficacy, it will take 24 months, which is actually a very quick in this patient population. We will follow the patients after the 24 months for an additional 12 months, but completion and conclusion on efficacy can be done after 22 months. The primary objective is to see, and we measure the PSA doubling time to see whether we can reduce the progress in patients that are actively treated compared with placebo. And we can also have a definition here. We have a definition that if we can delay the time needed for a second-line treatment, which is ADT. So that's the study we would like to start. And just to tell you here that the regulatory development, we are on track. We are on track here in that we completed the regulatory development in Europe. And with the results that came out last week, we also completed the pre-IND meeting, and what we'll now consider if we want to open an IND in US and include some clinical sites in US also. We have not yet decided on that. So this is the picture that I showed before. So this is what we are working with, and this is what we hope to achieve over the next 3 years. You could see earlier today that we issued a press release that we are going for a right issue. And this right issue is on approximately 181 million Swedish kronor. And this issue have been secured through subscription commitments and issue guarantees. The subscription period will be from 5th of June to the 19th of June, and the ratio compared to existing shares will be 1-to-1. Subscription price will be 19 Swedish kronor per share. So with this, I think I've used a little bit more than I could on my time, but that's where we are.
Thank you, Anders.
Thank you.
So yeah, big news today out. Rights issue of almost 181 million Swedish kronor. How far will that money get you?
That will take us 3 years ahead. That will cover all the planned activity over the 3 years, meaning that we will be able to complete the phase 2b clinical trial that I mentioned, and also that we will be able to conduct a second explorative study in a combination study in a different indication. That's what that will cover.
Okay. Would that be including if you decide to open up sites in the US as well?
We have to calculate that. I think we can cover 1 or 2 sites in US, but we have to look at it in detail before we can confirm if it's doable or not. And we have to also conclude whether it's a good idea. I mean, are there any difference from what the European authorities will approve on the protocol compared to what the FDA is saying? If they're not close enough, it will be too difficult. But if they are very close, we could consider opening 1 or 2 sites in US.
And you mentioned that you had news out last week about your last meeting with the FDA in the US. What can you tell us? Anything about that?
Well, the conclusion is that it's a pre-IND meeting, which is very much the same as a scientific advice procedure that we had with EMA. So you ask the agency's opinion on the product, the documentation, preclinical documentation, for example, and you ask the agency's opinion about the patient population, the endpoints, and so on. And they actually answered positively on all 18 points. There were nothing that they said you need to do this or you need to do this. Okay. So that's very positive. They did come with some recommendation that what we could do that would be a good idea to consider. But there is no showstoppers as such in what they have said. We don't need to have any additional preclinical data. We can go with the protocol as it looks right now, and we don't have to have any additional CMC data, meaning on the physical product. So it's a good result, very good result.
So provided that you get the shareholders okay at the extra general meeting in the 29th of May, you're good to go then.
We are, and that means that we will have no delays in continuing the development of the project. Yes.
And the rights issue, like you said, it's guaranteed to 100%, and you also have a couple of quite big investors coming in there. And as I understand it, there are long-term investors.
Yes.
Is there anything you can share about that?
Well, I think both investors of the big ones, the Nordic Cross and the M2 Management Asset Management, are pretty known in Sweden, and they are long-term investors. They invest a considerable sum of money. They feel that the project is very interesting, and they are aware that part of this documentation takes some time to compile. So they're very positive in relation to the development plans that we have come up with, and very interesting to stay with the company.
Okay. We are actually going to have to go forward in the program. If anyone has questions for Anders, you will be welcome to take them after we are finished. You will stay for a while?
I will stay, yes.
Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Anders.
Thank you very much.